Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Generative Creative Podcast. This is episode 1. Today, we are going to be talking with Lisa Trublet, and I'm excited to have this be the first episode. So, a little bit of context. My name is Rishabh. I'll be your host for today. And we're basically going to be talking about creativity and artificial intelligence on this podcast. And the purpose of this podcast is essentially to kind of equip creators and creative people with the knowledge they need about the new frontier of generative AI that's taking over. So these podcasts is essentially meant for creatives and creative people and people who are interested in creative pursuits to understand what the next frontier of artificial intelligence will mean for them and their work. So I'd like to first introduce Lisa on the podcast. Lisa, thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you for having me.
I specifically wanted to speak to Lisa, and I'm especially excited to talk to her because she has experience working both in the Gen AI field and the film industry. So I wanted to get just a little bit more context, Lisa, from you, a little bit about yourself and what are some of the projects that you're currently working on.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Well, first of all, happy to be here. Grateful for the opportunity. Always excited to talk about this stuff. So kind of ignore me if I geek out a little bit. But my career spans over 20 years of working in the film industry and in tech. So a good 50-50 balance. And what I realized, I was recently working at Vimeo for head of global marketing for demand gen. And after a round of layoffs, I kind of reached the point in my life where I was also like, you know what, I feel like I have learned so much over the years. And with the rise of AI, it just felt warranted. The time just felt right. I felt like I needed to step into my own entrepreneurial phase. And so Bright Theory AI was born, and that is essentially my cinematic intelligence company, a holdings company that is essentially going to roll out a series of products associated to the cinematic industry. And our first flagship product is actually called Sinima. And so I think this is what we're going to be chatting about today, which is really exciting.
Right.
So Sinima is our flagship product. It is the first operating system for cinematic auteurs, filmmakers, veterans, people who want to come back into the workforce, who've been let go, who feel like they've been replaced by AI. We're actually going to be able to help re-employ millions of filmmakers, film professionals, visual effects artists through cinema. And I'm really excited to bring it to the world and talk about it as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I think in terms of filmmaking, especially, it's such an interesting field where AI is now being integrated. So I'm curious to also know, like, what inspired you to maybe look at AI more closely and specifically start an operating system that's kind of a one size for everybody, all types of filmmakers. What was the inspiration behind that?
The fact that there really is nothing and there hasn't been anything. I think, over the last decade, we've seen a bunch of tools pop up. I mean, AI has been around for a while, but I think obviously with this massive explosion in the creativity department, I think people I mention this quite frequently on other podcasts as well, but I stand by people have got shiny object syndrome right now. And I don't think that a lot of the people building these tools come from this industry or they understand what the next 10 years are going to look like. And I don't think that they're thinking that far ahead. I think that people are tinkering around with a lot of tools right now that might essentially be fizzled out at some point. Where I'm coming in with Sinima is that it is really going to be first of its kind to market. We really are, I would say our moat is being able to allow the creator and the filmmaker to completely and fully, for the first time ever, own their entire supply chain from concept all the way through to distribution. That's never been done before because there's so many middlemen in the way who are trying to take a cut and a 10% there and a studio agency fee there. And I think that we're in the era right now where the creator economy is growing so rapidly that we're going to start seeing a huge shift in how creators and filmmakers are going to take ownership of their career. The difference between creators and filmmakers right now is that I think filmmakers have not fully wrapped their head around all the opportunity that is actually ahead of them. I think that they're feeling very left out of this AI revolution. I think that they're feeling very replaced. But I'm here to tell them, first and foremost, that everything that they've built over their entire career can absolutely continue to build wealth for them and generational wealth to come. And I'm hoping that Sinima is the place for them to do that. They can learn a few things from the creator economy, even though the creator economy is oftentimes podcasting, short form, long form, reels, like whatever it is. It might essentially be suited to the filmmaking career. But the filmmakers can learn a thing or two from how to monetize your own skill set, your own IP, and own your own IP and not worry about it being in the hands of the wrong person. So yeah, that is the crux of where it was born and how it came about.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think one of the big kind of elephants in the room when it comes to filmmaking and maybe creativity in general, when it comes to AI, is that there is kind of a fear around this technology, specifically around jobs and whether this is going to take away from the creative process. So I want to get into that broader conversation, but I want to hear first about like how cinema specifically and your product can kind of help filmmakers take their work to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the fun part. So Cinema is going to be a closed source tool where, just like basically any other tool that you can use right now to generate creativity, but we're going to be a frictionless filmmaking suite of solutions. So you're going to be able to ingest all the primary tools that you use as a filmmaker, whether it's Adobe, whether it's any other tool from Final Draft writing your scripts to any other visual effects tools that you use, you're going to be able to import it into one platform. You're going to be able to edit. But the most important thing that you're going to be able to do with Cinema is take your IP and punch it into our vault, our Cinema vault, and you're going to be able to model off of your per IP LLM, which is really, really awesome because right now we're seeing really big players in this space own the privacy of training their own models. What Cinema is essentially going to be able to do eventually with funding and with the right people on the team, we are trying to democratize the opportunity to train and own your own IP, right? Because we're feeling like a lot of the time filmmakers are seeing their own stuff floating around the internet because somebody's taken their stuff from YouTube and modeled it and trained it. So the cool part is you're going to be able to come into Cinema. Your IP is going to be locked. It's going to be watermarked with a blockchain stamp. We are at the intersection of blockchain and generative AI, which is also what makes us unique. We've got a proprietary tool that we're using for cybersecurity to help people who are creating their own IP within our space essentially get a first alert on like a real-time response alert on when and how and where their creative is being repurposed without their permission, and an instant cease and desist will be sent. Aside from that, they'll get daily notifications. And so there's this real thing about being creative first and filmmaker first within Cinema. So they'll be able to come to Cinema, upload their content, train on their own models, privately, securely, officially own their own IP. We don't take a single percentage of ownership around IP. We really pride ourselves in monetizing in other ways. We don't monetize for people's IP. And then from there, they're able to, in the same platform, distribute their content. And so they can go from concept all the way through to distribution. And we're talking about if they've got deals and partnerships with major TV networks, they're able to send it straight to them, or it's, sending off to YouTube, the rest of the social media channels or any sort of streaming network that they're affiliated with. Then from there, they're able to understand their monetization. They're able to understand their strategic partnerships if they've got any sort of influential partnerships out in the wild. And so it's a full universe of the filmmaker's life cycle. And it's not just for, like legacy filmmakers and creators, it's also for up and comers, people who are recent graduates who are trying to figure out how to navigate this new world. It's also for the legacy filmmaker who has got this extraordinary library of work over the last 50 years, who is now thinking, and how am I going to get a part of this? So there's a space for everyone. And we've also got the Cinema Guild, which is really for people who have, the elite of the elite in terms of filmmaking. It's people who have either won BAFTAs, Tonys, Emmys, Grammys, Oscars, and they can come in, train and model their own IP, whether it's their voice, their likeness, their visual effects packs, their sound effects, their Foley design. They can come in and model off of that, or they can just upload their packs in a sort of an educational way. We'll have a team to help package that. And they can upload it to the marketplace that we have. So we have an IP marketplace that we'll have for our filmmakers, and they can come in and essentially sell their packs in perpetuity. So it's not a one-time project. This is an opportunity for filmmakers to really build and continuing to build on wealth for themselves and not just have a project be a once-off situation. So I think it's the future of filmmaking, and I'm excited to be building this.
Yeah, no, that sounds extremely exciting. And I'm curious for our listeners, like where can they access these products? What stage of production and distribution are you in right now?
Yeah, we are slap bang in the middle of prototype phase, and we're currently raising our seed round. But I'm hoping that next time we have another conversation, we'd be able to talk, and then we will be further along the road. But I think for now, we're a prototype, we're raising. We're also looking to partner with A-list talent as well. We've gotten a few hand raises, which is really exciting, to come on board as a co-founder. Somebody who's, internationally known as well, because we've gotten quite a bit of quite a bit of interest from Asia, which is exciting, and then also Europe. So this is a true global product, which I'm hoping will shift the filmmaking community and make sure that the rights, the ownership, the money gets back into the hands of the creators that are actually doing the work.
Well, that's amazing. And I'm really excited to see, how these tools are going to shape the next, I think, wave of filmmaking and creativity in general. So I think one thing that I was hinting at earlier, and I kind of want to maybe transition into maybe a different part of the conversation. And one of the main reasons I kind of wanted to start this podcast is to invite people who are working in this field to kind of give their opinions about some of the discourse and the conversation that we've also been having with AI and creativity. I think there's a lot of trepidation, obviously, within the film industry. And I think about even the strikes that happened recently in Hollywood. One of the main concerns that was brought up was the use of artificial intelligence. So when you're pitching something like cinema, what are you telling creators and filmmakers to kind of give them the kind of reassurance that this is not something that's going to either, take up jobs or maybe even cause a dent in the creative process, and that soul of the work will continue to be there?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question. No one's actually asked me that before. And this is really the foundation of how cinema was born. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up and I just felt this strong urge and desire to help our cinematic community after just seeing so many layoffs, like in the thousands at these huge studios. And it infuriated me because it's like suddenly this new shiny object is here. Let's get rid of an entire department. So then I thought about, all right, how can we position this in a way that doesn't feel cheesy, doesn't feel salesy, doesn't feel like we're trying to take a cut of the pie? Because I'm really not. I'm building this in the hopes that we can reemploy millions of auteurs and millions of filmmakers around the world using and leveraging their own creativity, right? So the way that we position it when we're chatting to investors and also just to the people in the industry, the amount of people that have raised their hand and joined the wait list already is incredible. And we're just so grateful for that. But the thing that we constantly come back to is this frictionless filmmaking environment. I think a lot of filmmakers are very intimidated by this new AI tech stack. I mean, one 30-second video or a minute video made fully with AI can take nothing shy of about 11 different tools. So we at Cinema came to the idea that what if we create this frictionless experience, right? So we ultimately are able to ingest and integrate all the tools that anybody would use. They can decide what they want to plug in and play. They can use entirely their legacy tech stack within Cinema. They could also do a blend component where they're able to leverage their existing tech stack, traditional, and blend it with AI models. So they're able to have an overlay of AI wherever they want to pick and choose. The other component is they can be fully AI. So it's 3 different options for the creator. But I think the most important thing is to answer your question very specifically. The concept of cinema was generated on the fact that we have so much friction in trying to create a single video right now with AI. And we're trying to create that frictionless experience. But that in and of itself is not our moat. I think our moat is the IP ownership, distribution, security, and traceability across the internet worldwide. So I think filmmakers love what we're building because it puts them at the center and not the tech company, not us as the center. They are the ones who we care about the most. And we are built and made on our marketplace and our community. And we're so excited to bring this to a bunch of cities nationwide. We're going to host little parties for everybody who's interested in coming.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I think it's just the main thing that we keep coming back to is they are who we care about the most. We do care about our bottom line, but we find other ways to monetize. Like I mentioned earlier, we're not going to monetize off of their IP. That's up to them to do.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think creative freedom, especially in the AI kind of wave now, is going to become even more important. And I actually wanted to talk to you also about, given that you're working and straddling both these fields, some of the, I wouldn't say competing products directly to cinema, but some of the other products that are relevant to the space. And I'm thinking specifically from some of the big players in relation to video generation. So think like OpenAI's Sora or Google's VO models, which are kind of being used to create videos and very high quality, realistic videos. I just want to get a sense from you, especially for our listeners who might be creators or people working in the creative space. How are tools like that also going to make a difference in their work moving forward?
It's a great question as well. I think if these tools don't start putting the creators at the center of their universe, they're going to see a huge shift. It's going to be about 2 to 3 or 4 years, where I call this right now, and I stand by this. We're going to see a mass exodus of people being able to figure this shit out for themselves, and they're going to dominate their own supply chain without the need of anything else. What I'm trying to do with cinema is to democratize the opportunity to train on your own LLM. Goes by, that cost, that functionality, the GPUs, everything will start to lessen. It's just so expensive right now because of how new it is. Compared to the Soras, the Runways of the world, I mean, OpenAI, Sora, GPT, and Runway, they're all closed source, which is fine. But then, when you're talking about IP, which is what I want to come back to all the time with cinema, is that's our legacy. That's going to be our legacy. It's never really very clear who owns IP with these tools. It's like, does the platform own it once it's created and conceptualized? Does the creator own it once it's distributed? And the lines with us at cinema are extremely clear. We do not own IP, not one bit. There are no terms and conditions that identify us owning anything whatsoever. These big platforms will say, you own your IP, you have full control. But then there's always a little bit of a terms and conditions situation of, considering terms and conditions in play. And so you never really know what you're giving away when you work with these models. I know that OpenAI right now doesn't have any private training. I know Runway doesn't have any private training. I think Midjourney is on the way there. And then, I think that's where cinema is really going to differentiate, is being able to be the leaders in this space in terms of IP protection.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think cinema is also positioned in a way, especially since you mentioned this frictionless filmmaking experience and the IP ownership, to kind of differentiate from some of the bigger products. So that's definitely an interesting way of thinking about it. I am thinking maybe from the perspective of a listener who is thinking about creativity in a kind of different lens and, still believes in the human pick up a pen kind of creativity. I want to get your perspective maybe, and maybe we can break it down in between a couple different categories here. If I'm a creator right now and I'm listening to this podcast, or just in general surveying the state of AI and creativity right now, and I'm maybe worried about the future, worried about the state of my work in the future, what are some of the myths, and maybe even a curveball, what are some of your own personal concerns when it comes to, AI and creativity?
I mean, I can only go based on my experience when I first got into it about 2 years ago, right? And I think for me, I've been doing marketing in tech for so long, and that was the sort of, as soon as ChatGPT came around, I was like, oh my God, what is this? And it felt really intimidating. And in that moment, I realized, oh God, can you imagine somebody who has been making films and commercials and music videos for over, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, with their legacy tool stack, the Final Cut Pros, the Adobe, all that stuff, how confusing this new era must be for them. And so I would just say to the listeners that if you are still feeling a little bit intimidated, whether you're dabbling in it or not, I think if we can consider AI more as an extension of ourselves, I think that that's the best approach to take. I don't think it's going to replace us unless we allow it. And I think that you have full control over basically evolving with the product and with the times. It's not different to like the Industrial Revolution and then into the dot-com bubble and then suddenly into AI, right? So there's always going to be a massive shift. And quite frankly, we are so lucky to be alive in this era. And I think that personally, I'm seeing so many videos out there right now that are being AI generated by these people who think that they can make movies in 30 seconds, but then you see like an arm coming out of an ear and then a foot disappearing into the knee. And it's just like, oh my God, what are these people doing? What I really want to tell your listeners is that if you are a filmmaker who is really, really great at editing or visual effects or just directing and knowing what kind of camera angles to position on a set, how to call those actions, that is the kind of stuff that the average Joe on the street does not know. And if you can plug those descriptions and those actions and everything that you're already doing in your traditional legacy stack, whether you're on set or behind a screen, that is your gold. And I don't think that they realize how lucky they are to have that experience, because if they prompt that into ChatGPT, that filmmaking community will be the first to actually be able to produce a feature-length film, either entirely or at least, 50% AI. But it's going to take us a while until all the legacy filmmakers get up to speed, because I think that they are the ones who are sitting on the magic. They just don't know it.
Right, and I think creators have a kind of a different kind of perspective toward this. But if I shift the perspective, maybe even back, I know you mentioned like other people also creating similar tools, and there's all types of tools coming up for this field. If I'm somebody also who's creating an AI tool for creatives, what are the key tenets that I should keep in mind about just making sure that I'm creating something that doesn't replace jobs, but actually, becomes something that creative people can use as an extension of themselves?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. I think there are a lot of people dabbling in this space, but what I don't think a lot of people are doing is thinking about the entire supply chain of film and how codependent every aspect of filmmaking is on the next phase. I think people are thinking only about the output right now and how sexy they can make it once it's delivered, but they're not really thinking about the voice. They're not thinking about the mood, the atmosphere, the tonality. They're not thinking about the nuances of human beings' facial features, right? That's the kind of stuff I think that if anybody is building in this space right now, you really are going to do yourself a disservice if A, you're not putting the creator or the filmmaker first and foremost, answering the critical questions around how can you make, filmmaking so frictionless for them. And then also, from where I'm coming from, just constantly leaning into the community because I think the community, they're the ones with the questions. They're the ones who are hurting the most. So if you can solve a problem for the community and not the studios and the big tech, you've got gold.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think having that ear to the community is what's going to differentiate anybody who's kind of trying to bring Gen AI into the space because, it's ultimately, in my opinion, I feel like you're working with your target audience or your customer base more directly, and they're the ones who are going to use your product and they know the creative experience. So that can definitely help tailor these kinds of models for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Lisa. And I think I have one last question. And this is a question that I'm hoping to bring up at the end of every episode with every guest that I have. And again, for me, this podcast came out of wanting to speak directly to creators and creatives, whether that's filmmakers, musicians. Hopefully, we'll get to have a myriad of different guests with all kinds of perspectives. But I want to get your perspective on this last question, which is what are some key things that creatives, maybe especially filmmakers in your case, can do right now to kind of prepare for the next wave of Gen AI innovation?
I mean, I think that comes in two buckets, right? There's a couple of filmmakers right now who are very excited about AI and have been dabbling for a couple of months now. There are a couple of filmmakers who don't want anything to do with it, and I would speak directly to the ones that have no interest in it. Your livelihood depends on understanding and embracing the next revolution of filmmaking. And I think that there's a stubbornness and potentially a egotistical thing that some people carry. And I mean that with a lot of love and heart. And sometimes you just have to set aside those feelings and embrace the new. I think that's the way forward. But I will also say, I don't think that actors are going to want to stop acting. I don't think that cinematographers are going to stop wanting to be on set and physically do the work. I think that there's a space in a world where both can live and breathe and be true. I think we're going to see a lot of blend filmography. I think we're going to see a lot of people doing reshoots in AI because oftentimes when you have to reshoot a scene, it's impossible to schedule the actors or the cast, and it's going to cost the studios millions if they have to reshoot a couple of things. And so if they can save money doing that, I think that's where we'll start seeing the changes. But yeah, I think props to the filmmakers who are really leaning in and also giving a little nudge to those who are a little bit slow to the take. I wouldn't say they're late to the party. I think that they're still early, and I think if they can get in and start tinkering around and learning a little bit about what they're doing and how to leverage their existing skill sets, they are the ones who are going to be making the most money in the end. So very excited for them.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely an interesting perspective. And I think a lot of creators listening to this hopefully got like a lot more insight into how maybe your tools and the next generation of tools will actually help to enhance their work. So thank you for sharing that perspective. And Lisa, thank you so much for joining on the first episode of the Creative Generative Podcast. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time and want to let you have an opportunity to know where people can find more about you and your work.
Thank you. Yeah, what an honor to be the first guest. So you can find all that you need to know about cinema at our waitlist. Join our waitlist for product updates as soon as we launch, also events within your area to meet and connect with local filmmakers. The website that you're going to go to is try.cinema.ai/waitlist. I'll also send you the link, Rishabh, and you can pop that
Yep.
into the episode.
Yep.
Yeah, we're very, very happy. We're so excited about this new journey. And listen, there's always going to be competition, but I think if people can understand that we are consistently putting the creators and the filmmakers first, to the point where we're also going to be incentivizing their projects, right? We're going to host competitions every year where we're going to help fund and, give people a huge chunk of Bitcoin. I mean, not Bitcoins, of tokens to be able to build their projects. There's a lot of cool stuff coming.
Very, very exciting. And I wish you the very best, Lisa. And thank you to all of you who have tuned in for the first episode. This is supposed to be a podcast for creators in mind first, talking to some of the leading voices in Gen AI and creativity. So we'll have a variety of topics hopefully coming up. So lots of different things to chat about. If you would like to get in contact with us, email us at gencreativepod@gmail.com. That's gencreativepod@gmail.com. Whether you're interested in being a guest, have questions, feedback, our lines are open to hear more from you. This is Rishabh with Gen Creative Podcast. Thank you again, Lisa. And until next time, see you later.